In garment manufacturing, recycling materials is a trusted practice. However, used fabrics work best when stitched to similarly used fabrics. And in the case of winemaking or vinification, recycling barrels is common, but best results are achieved when vintners employ fresh containment units.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I want to welcome everybody inside, those that are in the coffee house, those that are watching online. We are thrilled that you're making real life part of your weekend. How many of you are here just because the air conditioning's on? Okay, thank you very much. Great. Hey, we are really thrilled that you're here. I want to just update you on a few things here as we get going. First of all, several weeks ago, we kicked off a brand new initiative around here called Gen Next, where we are kind of partnering together as a church to kind of pool our resources together where we could build a kids and students center right here on our property that will bless kids not only on the weekend to help our overcrowding with our kids area, but also all throughout the week to provide a great place for tutors for schoolwork, but also School of Rock for music, and also marriage and family therapists to help out with kids, struggles that they have today, and also their parents and their families. And so we want to create this environment right here on the property and also bless kids all around the world with a lot of really cool stuff we're going to do for them. And so we asked you to kind of join with us in a 2-year journey and to basically give above and beyond of what you currently give to be able to make this a reality. And I want to give you an update on where we are with that. This is a 2-year journey, and we are only in, I think, week 8 of this process. And so far, over $2 million has already been committed to this project. So it's pretty cool. So for those of you that have already committed to be giving, whether it's a one-time gift or it's every month for the next 2 years, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who have not yet committed but want to, there are commitment cards on the seat back in front of you. You can also do that online through the app. And those of you that don't know what we're talking about, we'd love to share more with you about that and the ways we want to impact our community and love for you to join us in that process. So this is going on for the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see some great stuff as a result of that. Now, here's what that means. Because this is a faith journey, not a finance journey, we are moving ahead on this because we do believe this is what God wants us to do, and God always pays for what he orders, and so we're just going to wait to see how he does that. And so we're stepping out on faith with this, and here's the first thing we have to do. We're beginning the renovation process on our current campus as we prepare to build our new building. This is a full-scale renovation process. So what's happened already is the parking lot is going in, should be open the next few weeks. The undergrounds is moving up above ground over to that little shopping center area across the parking lot. That should be done the next few weeks. And we're beginning the remodeling and redoing of stuff here on our current campus, which means we have to shut down the outdoor amphitheater for a while we renovate out there. Now, some of you are in here right now begrudgingly. You came, you always sit outside. We told you you can't sit outside. You came in here, you're already angry. What a great way to start church, okay? Bitter. So I can see you from here and see the smoke coming out of your ears. I'm sorry, but we need to do some changes out there with the lighting, the video, the sound, the seating, and that's all part of this process. So bear with us over the next few months as we do that. It can still be used like for just hanging out once in a while, or if you bring pets with you, as many of you do, and sit outside, with your herd of animals, you can still do that. You just have to watch it on your iPad and then, take care of your dogs. So whatever it is, you can do that, or you can come on in here. So that's the first process. We're starting with that, and we hope to be in the building process of the building by the fall. So be praying for that. Join us in this process. It's going to be great. So that's what's going on with that. Now, I want to talk to you about what happened last weekend. If you missed out last weekend, you missed out because it was amazing. Daryl Strawberry was incredible. If you haven't seen it, go to the website and take a look at it. It's awesome. Now, I can tell you this, Daryl is as good a guy as you would hope him to be, and as good a guy as he was a baseball player, just a great guy, really nice, very genuine, the real deal. And if you didn't see his story, check it out. Now, here's what's really cool. He told me about this. Many of you know about these documentaries that ESPN does called 30 for 30. Every guy in here knows what I'm talking about. You watch them like I do. You cry all through them, They're just very powerful. They're going to do one. They've actually filmed it already on Daryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden. And they're going to talk about their journey and how they got caught up in drugs, and Daryl's life changed. Doc's, unfortunately, has not yet. And so the story is going to be aired in July. And so when that comes out, people are going to be talking about this again. So direct them to the website. Let them hear Daryl's story, or you can share that with them right there from your phone if you download the RLC app and find that weekend message, send that out to somebody. That'd be fantastic. Last thing I want to say as we get rolling here is there's a big tub of water down here, and it's not for me to do a cannonball later on. This is for baptisms that we do around here, and we would love for you to join us in this process. And so at the conclusion of our service, you can come down and join in. Several people have already been baptized this weekend. Several more are signed up. But even if you didn't sign up, we got a T-shirt for you. We got a towel for you. What a great day to go home sopping wet when it's 130 outside. So just make this part of your Sunday. It would be awesome to have you do that. Okay, we're continuing in our series called Parables, and we're talking about these great stories that Jesus told that have such rich wisdom for us. We're still unpacking these, still trying to figure out what these things are all about. And we're walking through a lot of these over the summer. And I know that a lot of you are traveling and you're going to be, hit and miss on church. Check it out online. Join with us online. Many of you are watching online right now. I want to say hello to you. And be with us through this series because there's such great stuff in these parables that we're going to be walking through. So here's what we're going to talk about today. It has a lot to do with these three pictures here. Here's the first one. Okay? Yeah, it's a dog, we assume, that has somehow got, a little bit befuddled here by the watering can. Now, I wouldn't say that all of us have experienced that before, but you kind of understand this moment of, oh no, what do I do now? Okay? Here's another moment of being stuck, and that's this car has somehow underestimated the turning radius here, and I don't know if this is a student driver, if this is the dad of the daughter who was driving this. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Doesn't matter. Okay, here's the third one. This guy decides to take the sidewalk with his car, and he gets stuck here. Nobody's finding these as funny as I am, okay? I laughed my full head off when I looked at these, because it wasn't me. I thought this was great. So it happened to somebody else. Because the truth is, I've done stuff like this. I've been stuck before, and maybe you have too. I've been stuck in the snow. I stuck my car in the mud. I got stuck on a median one time. That's a whole other story I think I've shared with you. But the truth is, when you get stuck like this, everybody does the same thing. Hit the gas. Okay? Because somehow revving the engine and running the tires is going to somehow fix that. I don't think so. That the truth is, all of us get stuck, but sometimes it doesn't always look like a car. It's a bit of a, I'm kind of stuck in my life. Now, take a look at this growth continuum here for a business. Okay, it starts off going really good. It takes, sudden growth, and then it plateaus, and then it begins to dip. Every business experiences this. And what the goal is in any kind of business that you're in when this begins to happen is you want to find a way somewhere right around here for it to go this way and to have another growth spurt. Now, here's the thing that's true about every single one of us, whether it's a business or not. All of us know what it's like to be right here, and we're stuck. And we're fearing that this is about to happen, and we're trying to figure out how can we make this happen. For instance, some of you may be stuck at work right now. The same thing you've been doing, the same hours you've been working, the same way you used to work is not working anymore. Maybe you got a new boss. Maybe there's been a reorg. Maybe there's been some kind of transition at your office. And let's put the growth continuum back up here again. And for some reason, you are stuck right here trying to figure out how to get here. Some of you know this in your marriage. The first few years of your marriage, everything was bliss. Everybody's happy. Whatever you did was romantic. Now, every time you walk into the room, she just says, you stink. I don't know what it is. You're getting older. You just smell. Every time she speaks, you cringe. Like, oh, no, what do I got to do now? And there's this tension that's forming, and you're just stuck right here. And you don't want to go this way. For some of you, this is a second go-around. For some of you, this is a third go-around. You're thinking, hey, what worked before is not working now. How do I make this work? I don't know. For some of you, you feel like you're stuck with your parenting. When they're young, when they're like 5 years old, you can control them. Now they control you. They control your money, they control your time, they control your car, your house, everything. They're in charge, and you're just stuck in your parenting. You don't know how to take the keys back, and you feel like it's getting away from you. How do we take it this way? For some of you, you feel like this personally. Everything seems to be fine, but what used to be fun is not fun anymore. What used to bring joy doesn't bring joy anymore. What used to bring fulfillment doesn't bring as much fulfillment anymore. And you're just stuck. You thought the vacation would help, or the new car would help, or the new job would help, but it doesn't. You're just stuck. And this is certainly the way we feel spiritually. Some of you are brand new to church. You're just checking things out. For you, God has always been something you dealt with on holidays, but now you're trying to figure out how this is part of your life, and the old ways you used to do things is not working anymore, and you're stuck. For some of you, you've been a Christian a long time, and you read the Bible, and it just seems like the same old, same old. You're just going through the motions, going through the routines, and you're stuck. You don't know how to get unstuck. The truth is, all of us have methods. All of us have routines. All of us have traditions. And eventually, one day, they don't work anymore. Well, that's kind of what this story that Jesus is going to unfold for us gets at. And when you first hear it, you're going to think, I don't know how that has anything to do with me. And I'm sure the people that heard it for the very first time in the first century thought, what does that have to do with me? And we're going to begin to unpack this for what it meant for them, what it means for our church, and what it means for us as individuals. Now, let me give you the setting for what it is we're going to talk about. Jesus is kind of like standing out there talking to a bunch of people. And there's a bunch of people that are always following him around who are like the outcasts of society, are so thrilled that somebody that appears to be spiritual is even talking to them. And then there's another group. They're the professional church people, the Pharisees, come rolling in with their clipboard, making sure Jesus isn't doing anything wrong. And as Jesus begins talking, he begins to address them because they have a question for him. And let me tell you where this question comes from. They are rule keepers. And I don't mean they just keep the 10 Commandments. I mean, over the course of many years, they've added 636 more laws to the original 10, just to keep them from breaking the 10. For instance, God said, I want you to keep my word on your mind at all times. So they go, okay, that's fine. So they write out God's words, they put it in a little box and put it on their forehead and wear it around. It's on my mind. Well, I don't think that's what he really meant. Yeah, but it's on my mind. I kept it, letter of the law. Okay, whatever. God says, God the Father says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep the Sabbath and keep it holy. And so what he's saying is, I want you to take a day off and rest. And they came up with all these things they're not supposed to do in order to keep the Sabbath. In other words, you can walk this far, but not too far. You can light a fire, but you can't make it hotter. And here's another one. I'm not making this up. You can eat an egg laid by a chicken on Friday, but not on Saturday. That's work. Well, I think the chicken kind of needed to do that, but that's another thing. So they had all these little rules that they could not do. And Jesus begins to address that through this story that he tells. Take a look at what happens. One day, some people said to Jesus, John the Baptist's disciples fast and pray regularly, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees. Why are your disciples always eating and drinking? Okay, so fasting and praying was something that they would do in order to deprive themselves of something in order to think about God. We still practice this today. When you fast from something, every time you have that hunger pain inside you, every time you think, boy, I wish I could eat this or have that, you remember that and you start to pray. It kind of draws you back to God naturally. And they would do this all the time to think about God. And now they're looking at Jesus' disciples, and they're not fasting. They're eating and drinking. And now suddenly they feel like that one person in the family who's on the diet and nobody else is. And you sit at the table and stare at everybody while they eat whatever they want to eat, and you're just bitter at them all, That's the way they feel. And so Jesus begins to address it. He says, do wedding guests fast while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. Here's what Jesus is saying. If there's a wedding going on, you don't sit in the back and cry about the wedding party leaving. You enjoy them while they're there. In other words, there's a time and a place for everything. Now, as a pastor, I get the privilege to do a lot of weddings, can be a lot of fun. It's really great to be in some people's lives at that moment. But inevitably, at every wedding that I do, there comes this moment, whether it's before the wedding or after the wedding, where I'm standing right next to the DJ, and it's just us. Just kind of sitting there, waiting for the thing to happen, waiting for it to start. I'm getting my mic. I'm finding out what song we're coming into. Oh, Celebrate by Kool and the Gang. That's great. Okay, I've heard that one before. I did a wedding one time. The guy's name was Jesse, and we played Jesse's Girl by Rick Springfield. That's fantastic, okay? If your name's Jesse, play the song every day, whatever. So I'm listening to him. I'm trying to figure out, what it is we're going to go into. And then I have one question I ask every DJ that I work with at every wedding. And the question is this. What's your best wedding story? Because everybody's got one. something crazy that happened, somebody passed out, they released doves or, something wild or whatever it is. So I say, what's your best wedding story? And this DJ looks at me and goes, oh, I got one for you. I said, what is it? Well, one day I did this wedding, and we get to the reception, and it's deep into the reception, and everybody has been dancing and eating, and now it's time for the toast, and the mother of the groom stands up, and apparently she'd had a lot to drink. And she stands up and raises her glass and decides this is the appropriate time to tell everybody, including the father of the groom, that he is not the father of the groom. Wow, okay? Now that's a great wedding story. I mean, I thought I had a great wedding story, but I just walked away, dropped the mic on that one. Unbelievable. Some of you are thinking, man, I might know that family. I hope not, all right? Now, some of you won't hear another thing that I say, but here's the thing about that. There's a time and a place for that conversation, and it is not in front of 200 of your closest friends, okay? And here's what Jesus is saying about this particular situation. There is a time and a place for fasting, but it's not while the one you're praying to is here. In other words, you fast and pray to think about God, but hello, he's here. It'd be like having a birthday party for your kids, and instead of being out for the party, you're in the back room watching video of the previous year's party. Go enjoy the party, because God is here. He's in your midst. Why fast and pray waiting for him when he is here? And then Jesus begins to kind of launch into this next story. He gave them this illustration. No one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and uses it to patch an old garment. For then the new garment will be ruined, and the new patch wouldn't even match the old garment. So he starts in this illustration. He says, it's like you've got this garment, and you've had it for years, and it's shrunk, and it's expanded, and now it's just kind of, old. And then there's a hole in it. So you take a new piece of cloth, you put it on there, and then when you wash it, that new piece of cloth shrinks, and it rips an even bigger hole than was there before. And everybody's listening to Jesus going, okay, what's that got to do with anything? So he continues. Look what he says next. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Some of you just woke up. Okay, I said wine, and you're like, well, hold on. Are we serving? What's going on? It's a little early. I don't care. Have we had communion? I don't know. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the new wine would burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. So here's what would happen. When the grapes would be picked and then they would be smashed, the fermentation process would begin. And they would usually be put in these vats with no lid on them, so all of the, the gases from the grapes could escape. But from time to time, they would have to put them into wineskins immediately to transport them somewhere. But the fermentation process would still happen, and those gases would begin to expand. And if that wineskin was an old wineskin and it already expanded, then when this batch begins to expand, it would pop like a balloon. And he says, you got to stay away from putting new wine into old wineskins, because the new will outgrow the old and it will be ruined. And then Jesus sums it up this way. New wine must be stored in new wineskins. Now the Pharisees at this point are thinking, okay, what's that got to do with anything? And here's what Jesus is saying to them. Your old ways of doing things no longer contain my new message of grace. In other words, everything you had before me was preparing you for me. All the sacrifices prepared you for the ultimate sacrifice he will one day give. All the religious holidays and traditions and feasts and rules were preparing you to help you remember the past, to see how much you need a deliverer, and now the new deliverer is here. Everything from the past was to bring you to the present, and the old no longer holds the new. And now what's going to have to happen is the church is going to take it from here, because the old laws no longer hold the new grace. In other words, we could say it like this. New results require new behaviors. Now, here's what this meant for the Pharisees. This meant you cannot put new grace into your old rules. It doesn't work that way anymore. Your old ways of managing everybody's religiosity and spirituality by marking, are they doing a good job? Are they religious? Are they right? Your ways of keeping score no longer work because now there's grace because of Jesus. And because of that grace, it no longer fits in your old methods of rules. New methods for a new message. Here's what this means for the church. The church has to constantly be expanding to contain what God is doing. Jesus said that the church will begin and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Have you ever thought about the fact that the church has been in existence for over 2,000 years? Nothing else has ever lasted that long. Empires have risen and fallen quicker than that. Businesses have risen and fallen quicker than that. But the church continues. Why? Because it keeps expanding to keep up with what God is doing. New results require new behaviors. For instance, the original church never met in a building until about 300 AD. They met in homes, but one day buildings became available, they moved into buildings. And now we continue to move back into homes and into buildings, back and forth. For instance, the Bible used to just be a collection of letters people would pass around. And then they put it all together in one book. Then they began to mass produce it. Then the priests were the only ones that had it. And then eventually it made it into everybody's hands. Now we can download it on our phones. It has to keep expanding to keep up with what God is doing. The same thing is true with our music. It originally, years and centuries ago, it was just chants people would do. Na, 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 boom, hit their head. Monty Python, sorry. Anyway, and all this, chanting. And then it got put to music. And let me tell you how they did that. They went, this guy by the name of Martin Luther, he went and got bar songs that people would drink to and swing the beer and all that. And they took the song and just changed the words. And so I always laugh when people say the hymns were holy. Well, the hymns were bar songs, but that's fine, okay? A mighty fortress is our God, and then they're swinging the beer around. And that's what they did. And they took that into the church and they just added the words they wanted to say, which was great, but it was just a new method to contain what God was doing. And then it began to transition into what we call hymns that were, these songs that we had in books on the back of pews. If you remember that, if you went to church as a kid, and we'd take out the hymnals and we'd sing the song out of the book, and there was 4 verses, and we never sang the third, only the first, second, and the fourth. And we'd close it up and put it back, and then that was somehow holy. And then somehow somebody put them up on the screens. Oh, perish the thought, And now there's lights, and there's smoke, and there's a jacuzzi, and all kinds of stuff. Because the church has to keep expanding to keep up with what God is doing, And we can't go back and say, that was holy and that was holy. No. It's God is holy. And we just keep expanding to keep up with what He's doing. The same thing is true in the way we do church. For years it was in homes, and then it went into buildings, and then it went into homes again and buildings. And now the growing trend over the last 20 years is for one church to have multiple locations where the same teacher can teach in all those locations via video. And years ago we thought, oh, no one will ever do that. Think about it. Most of your life is spent looking at a video screen. If you're under 40, you know this position right here all the time. Okay? If you're under 18, you don't know anything but this, okay? Just constantly, because that's all we look. And so now to be able to do teaching multiple locations on video is a way just to leverage a church's influence, which is what we're going to do in Canyon Country in the next few months. Why do we do that? Because we keep expanding to keep up with what God is doing. New results require new behaviors. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, that's cool for the church, but what does that mean for me? Well, I'll tell you what that means for you. And that is, if you want to keep growing in your faith, and if you want to get unstuck in your relationships in your life, sometimes new results require new behaviors. I mean, think about this. We know this to be true with our fitness, right? You can't eat like you're 20 when you're 40. It doesn't work like that anymore. New results require new behaviors. Same thing is true with your marriage. What worked before won't work tomorrow. You have to be continuously learning about each other, taking time to understand each other, because new results require new behaviors. I feel sorry for some of you that have waited so long to get married. The trend is now to wait longer, 28, 29, 30 to get married. And I just think, oh, that's going to be painful. because you've just been so set in your ways as a single person. You get married, guy gets up to go get the golf clubs and head out on Saturday morning. Where are you going? Well, I always play golf on Saturday morning. Not anymore. I got a list of chores for you, you know. Where'd all our money go? Well, I always spend half the paycheck on shoes. Not anymore. If we want to live and eat indoors, you know, not anymore. And it's just constant learning of new results require new behaviors. Same thing is true in your parenting. What worked when they're 5 doesn't work when they're 15. My kids I got a teenager and a preteen. Let me tell you, the threat of going to their room doesn't matter that much anymore. They'd rather be there. But if I say, I'm going to take away all your technology, oh my goodness, the world is ending. And you have to keep flexing and changing. New results require new behaviors. But the same thing is true with us spiritually. Some of you, when it comes to God, God has always been that like fire extinguisher behind the glass. I'll go there when needed, in case of emergency. But now you've begun this process of growing in your faith. And suddenly, you know, you've realized that words like moderation and honesty and forgiveness were never much a part of your vocabulary. But guess what? You want to grow in your faith? New results require new behaviors. It's time to start reading your Bible on a daily basis, not just what I put up on the screen. It's time to start making a church a priority, not just on holidays and when somebody threatens you to be here. It's time to make talking to God what you do all the time, not just when you're in trouble. New results, new behaviors. Some of you, you've been recognizing you've got some habits and some hurts and some hang-ups in your life. You're struggling with some things that you don't know what to do with. You're beginning to figure out you have some codependency issues. You've got some depression issues. Maybe you've got an addiction you can't overcome. And you're recognizing you got to do something about this. Just saying you'll deal with it one day is not enough. It's time. It's time for you to finally decide, I'm going to deal with this and address it. Maybe start checking out Celebrate Recovery on Friday night. It's not just for people with addictions, it's for all of us who get stuck. And maybe for some of you, you've been a follower of Jesus a long time. You read the Bible every day, you pray every day, but you just get stuck. And there's days you think, I'm just logging pages. I don't even know what I'm reading. Maybe it's time you do something you've never done before. Whether it's join a life group, whether it's start serving, maybe it's even read the Bible in a different translation. Whatever you need to do to be able to get unstuck. New results require new behaviors. Now, I want to take a moment and just kind of dig the knife a little deeper, because this is what I really think is going on in this passage. Here's what Jesus is saying. The new truth won't fit in the old lie. Here's the situation most of us are stuck in. We've started coming to church. We've started hearing about what God wants us to do, and we're having a really hard time fitting it in to our old lifestyle, because the new truth won't fit in the old lie. Can I give you a few examples? Here's the first one. What about honesty? We want to be honest people. We want people in our lives to be honest to us. We teach our kids to be honest. Can I give you a few checkpoints here? Do you still go to McDonald's and order water and go over and get Sprite? When you go to the movies and they say, how old are your kids? Do you tell them to go play somewhere else while you tell the person behind the counter they're 7? Seriously? He's shaving. I don't think that he's 7. No, trust me, they're 7. And we laugh about those things, but what's your honesty look like when it comes to the stories that you tell, the information that you share, your taxes, the hours that you log at work, the numbers that you report? The new truth of honesty won't fit in the old lie of, cutting some corners. Here's another one. Everything you have is from God. Brennan talked to us about this earlier, this idea that everything we have, all of our stuff, all of our talents, all of our money, it's from God. And so when God wants a part of it back, we should just say, it was yours to begin with. I'm just managing it. But that's hard for us to do, isn't it? There's an old story about how back in medieval times, the warriors that would fight would often, when they gave their lives to Christ, they'd be baptized with their sword in their hand and their arm out of the water as they went down into the water, as if to say, God can have all of me, but I keep my sword and my fighting arm. You know how I think most of us metaphorically get baptized now? with our wallet out. God, you can have me, but this baby is mine. Until suddenly ends don't meet, or we lose a job, or we go through a recession, then suddenly we want God involved in our finances really quickly. Everything we have is from God. And this old lie of, I'll take the money, God, you fix everything else, it doesn't fit with this new truth that everything is from God. Because the quicker you learn how to open up those hands, not only do you get generous with God, but God sees he could give you more because your hands are open. Let me give you one last one. And that is, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. When we come to that realization that we are broken, sinful people that need a Savior, there is nothing so wonderful as understanding the grace of God. But after we've come to Christ, it is not long before we begin to look down on other people who have yet to make that decision. And I'm amazed at us who call ourselves Christians, who constantly throw rocks at people in culture who don't call themselves Christians, and we forget the fact that we were once there and have also fallen short of the glory of God. This old lie that, you know what, I'm actually fine, or other people, aren't as good as me, doesn't fit with this new truth that all of us have sinned and need the grace of God. And thus we need to have compassion on all and love them where they are. All throughout the Bible we see stories of God taking the old and making it new. And we see that metaphor so symbolic in baptism, where lives are given over to Christ and people are baptized into him, and a new creation then begins. And maybe that's a decision you need to make today. At the end of our time together, you'll have a chance to do that if you'd like. But I wanted you to hear the story of someone who's done that from our church and the journey God has him on. Take a look at this.
My name is Grant, and I'm one of the worship drummers here at Real Life Church. My story really begins is that I grew up in a very musical household. And my parents told me that I was banging on pots and pans with like wooden, spoons when I was like 3 years old or something like that. So I was in bands throughout like elementary school and junior high, but it wasn't until high school when I actually started taking it really seriously. So my band and I like literally produced a record in my bedroom, shopped it, got signed, toured nationally with our favorite artists, and it was just a wild experience for really any 16-year-old to do. A dream come true for sure. So back in 2012, that's when I came across Real Life Church, and at that time my parents split. As unfortunate as the situation was, it did lead us to where we are today. So I remember specifically walking into my very first service, and the worship band was playing Live and Let Die, the Guns N' Roses version, and thinking to myself how awesome was, that. I grew up in the Catholic tradition where I didn't even necessarily know what a worship band was. So at the time it felt very kind of compelling, a little bit dangerous, and I was very attracted to that. The service was absolutely incredible. Rusty, I remember specifically, was talking about toxic relationships. And in the moment, I really felt like he was talking to my situation directly. And it spoke a lot of truth. And that service really changed my journey and my faith. I felt God really calling me out of my own personal band to pursue other endeavors. And the worship team was on my mind a lot. And so I decided to audition. It's been an incredible 2.5 years just drumming for Real Life Church. But unfortunately, in the beginning, I found myself doing it for the wrong reasons. I think the tangible energy that performing gave me still lingered in me. I found myself just, being burnt out. It really wasn't until this past August where I was invited to Catalina with The Bridge, which is the young adults ministry. And that trip literally changed my entire journey in my faith. We worshiped like twice a day there, and Dave gave a message daily. That trip gave me a chance to reevaluate why I worship. Word was going around that Dave, my pastor Dave from The Bridge, was doing baptisms. And so I felt that that was the appropriate step in proclaiming my love and my commitment to Jesus Christ. So I didn't wait on that. I hopped on that and got baptized. Soon after that, I joined a life group and I got connected, and I met a ton of friends who were just like-minded and are driven by the same goals. The thing that I most value about Real Life Church is that they value a relationship with Jesus Christ over religion. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far.
Isn't that great?